Greg? Greg, are you okay?
The film opens with a girl running in pure terror down a quiet city street, trying to escape from an unseen, relentless entity. Realizing she won't be able to get away and her time has run out, she stops to call her parents one last, heartbreaking time. After that, she flees onto a desolate beach, where her twisted, mutilated body is discovered the next morning. Soon the story shifts focus to a young college student named Jay. One day her friends invite her to watch a movie with them, but she turns them down because she's preparing for a highly anticipated date with a new guy. Hugh is an attractive young man who doesn't raise any red flags and seems perfectly charming to Jay. However, during their date at the movie theater, he becomes strangely fixated on a girl in a yellow dress whom Jay simply cannot see. This unsettling behavior seems strange to her, but she brushes it off and doesn't pay much attention to it. After their first date, Jay returns home, glowing with excitement, and shares her positive impressions with her sister Kelly. Soon it's time for their second date. The couple gives in to passion in Hugh's car. In the quiet afterglow, Jay recalls her childhood dreams and realizes that things that once felt incredibly important to her now feel completely different. She tries to share these intimate thoughts with her new boyfriend, but the moment is violently shattered when Hugh suddenly knocks her out with chloroform. When Jay finally regains consciousness, she finds herself in a decaying, abandoned building. She is tightly bound to a wheelchair and cannot move. Her failed lover stands before her and explains why he did this horrific thing to her. It turns out he was carrying a terrible curse, a cruel, shape-shifting entity that constantly followed him. That's why he was always running. On the day of their first date, the girl in the yellow dress whom only he could see was that very monster. The stakes are lethal. If the creature catches its victim, it will kill them without mercy. The only way to survive is to pass the curse on to someone else through physical intimacy. However, you can never truly get rid of it forever. If the current victim dies, the entity immediately returns to the previous one. At first, Jay doesn't believe Hugh's words and thinks he's completely insane, but that's exactly why he brought her to this desolate place, to force her to see the creature. A few minutes later, out of the dark shadows, she sees a naked woman on the street slowly and purposefully walking toward her. In a panic, Hugh puts Jay in the car, drives her home, throws her out of the vehicle, and speeds away into the night. Jay tells her sister and friends everything. They call the police. The officers head to the address where Jay says Hugh lives. But once they arrive, it becomes clear that the address was fake. Neither Hugh nor the naked woman is anywhere to be found. Jay tries to continue her normal life and goes to class. But during the lecture, she acts distant and distracted, clouded by lingering fear. Suddenly, she spots the creature in the window, this time appearing as a frail, elderly woman. Realizing the entity is coming straight for her, Jay grabs her things and quickly flees the auditorium in a blind panic. But she also sees her pursuer in the hallway. The girl starts screaming in terror while everyone around her has no idea what she's pointing at. Jay is horrified. Every word Hugh said was the absolute truth. She makes it back home and once again confides in her loved ones about her problem. Her friends Paul and Yara decide to spend the night at her house, to be there if anything happens. Jay and Kelly gratefully agree. That night, Jay can't fall asleep. So she goes downstairs to the living room where Paul is keeping watch. The guy, who has harbored feelings for Jay for a long time, tries to cheer her up by telling lighthearted stories from their shared past. Just when the girl has almost forgotten about her troubles, the sound of shattering glass echoes through the house. Someone has smashed the kitchen window and is likely now inside their sanctuary. Paul runs upstairs to wake the others, while Jay, driven by adrenaline, decides to check the house herself. A few moments later, she comes face to face with the creature in the form of a woman, still relentlessly trying to reach out and touch her. Screaming, Jay runs to the others and tells them everything, but they can't see what she sees, so it's hard for them to understand the depth of her panic. Sometime later, the creature enters the bedroom again, manifesting in yet another disturbing form. Paralyzed by fear, Jay flees the house in terror. Soon the group finds her at a nearby playground and tries to figure out what to do next. A moment later, Jay sees her neighbor Greg and freezes, fearing it might be the creature again. Fortunately, it's really him. After learning what's going on, their old friend immediately offers to help. He brings his car to the playground and drives everyone as far away from the city as possible. They end up at the old abandoned house of the guy who passed the curse to Jay. Among a pile of adult magazines, they find a photo of Hugh and realize where to start looking for him. The group wants to find him and ask about the creature, so they track down his former high school. They manage to dig through his records in the archive and get his real address. When they arrive, Jay and the others confront Hugh, whose real name is Jeff, demanding he tell them everything he knows about the monster chasing her. It turns out he doesn't know much either. It all started after he slept with a stranger he met at a club. That's when he realized the parasitic curse is passed to whoever the current victim becomes intimate with. And if the new victim is killed, the entity goes back to the previous one. That's why he started dating Jay and slept with her, just to save his own life. He also explains that the monster is quite intelligent. It never runs and seems to enjoy this slow, psychological hunt. Hugh offers a hollow apology and advises Jay to pass the curse to someone else, but she is horrified by the thought of putting her loved ones in danger. In search of a safe place, Greg takes the group to his parents' secluded cabin by the lake. There, he decides to teach Jay how to shoot a revolver so she can defend herself. He believes it will help her feel more confident and less afraid of the shadows. But the peace is short-lived. While the group is sitting on the beach, Jay's hair suddenly stands up, the sign the entity is close. She tries to fight off the invisible demon, but it's completely useless as she is tossed around. Paul rushes to her aid, grabs a chair and smashes it against the invisible creature's back, but it easily throws him aside. Still, the intervention gains them enough time to retreat inside the house and lock the doors. But the creature begins to batter its way in anyway. Overwhelmed, Jay decides not to wait for the others. She steals Greg's car and drives off into the unknown darkness. Moments later, in her frantic state, she loses control, crashes into a cornfield, and loses consciousness. Jay wakes up in the hospital with a broken arm. Her eyes scan the room nervously, but she sees nothing suspicious. Her friends are finally starting to believe her, especially since Paul has visible bruises from when he tried to save her at the lake. However, Greg remains a skeptic. Believing there is a rational explanation, he decides to sleep with Jay to prove to everyone that there is no monster. And despite the risks, no one even tries to stop him. For several days, nothing happens to Greg, and everyone starts thinking Jay just imagined the whole nightmare. But it wasn't that simple. One afternoon, Jay looks out the window and sees someone breaking into Greg's house across the street. Realizing it's the creature, she sprints to help her friend as fast as her injuries allow. When she reaches his room, she sees Greg's half-naked mother standing there, who is actually the demon in its most twisted form. Jay tries to scream a warning, but it's too late. Greg opens the door and the creature attacks, brutally killing him in an instant. Sometime later, Paul asks Jay why she chose to pass the curse to Greg instead of him, since both guys were in love with her. That's when he learns that she had already slept with Greg before and that he wasn't afraid of the monster, so she decided to give it to him to protect Paul. Realizing the creature is now back on her trail, Paul offers to sleep with her, but Jay refuses to put him in the line of fire. The next day, the group comes up with a desperate plan to finally destroy the creature for good. They go to a large public swimming pool. According to the plan, Jay must act as bait and lure the invisible monster into the water while the others throw electrified appliances into the pool. They hope this surge of electricity will be enough to kill it. Jay enters the water and sees the monster, but it displays a cruel intelligence. It doesn't follow her in. Instead, it starts throwing the heavy electrical devices right at her. The others frantically try to figure out where it is so they can shoot it in the head, but they can't see it. And Jay's panicked directions aren't enough to help them aim. Eventually, using floating bed sheets, they manage to coat the creature and locate its form. Paul shoots it, but it takes several rounds to bring the hulking mass down. The monster finally falls into the pool. Jay tries to scramble out, but the creature's hand shoots out and grabs her leg with a crushing grip. Paul doesn't stop firing until another bullet finds its mark, forcing it to let go. Jay climbs out to safety and watches as the water in the pool slowly turns a dark, thick red with blood. The group leaves believing they have finally killed the nightmare entity. Soon after, Paul and Jay decide to share the burden of the curse and become intimate. They try to figure out if anything has changed, since she might have successfully passed the curse to him. But neither of them feels any difference or sense of relief. Sometime later, Paul drives around the city looking at girls, just in case the creature wasn't actually killed and he needs a target. However, he finds he doesn't have the courage to pass the curse to an innocent stranger. And so, Jay and Paul walk down a suburban street holding hands, trying to reclaim a normal life, while a mysterious, solitary silhouette follows them in the far distance. And that's how the film ends.